Did Steve Biko's killers disclose the whole truth to the TRC about his death? Is it possible to declare the 12th September as National Steve Biko Day? And what does the Black Consciousness movement mean to black female learners who are victims of racism? What does it take to be black conscious? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. Today marks 39 years since the death of Black Consciousness Movement founder Steve Bantu Biko. Steve Biko died under mysterious circumstances while in police custody at the then Pretoria Central Prison on 12th September 1977. Conflicting reports have characterized his death, with the police at the time claiming that he had stuffed himself to death. However, the truth, though, is that he died from brain damage, a result of massive injuries to the head. A threat to the Apartheid regime, Biko was arrested at a roadblock under the Terrorism Act, interrogated and tortured for up to 22 hours before meeting his untimely death. Today, Question Time asks, did BC die with Steve Biko? We are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial 089-110-4210. Our Twitter handle at Question Time 24. My guest today, stalwarts of the Black Consciousness Movement, Professor Itumeleng Jeremiah Musala. He is the president of Azanian People's Organization, and Laibon Tiani Mabasa is also a Black Consciousness Movement veteran and president of the Socialist Party of Azania. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
Well, here you are, stalwarts of the Black Consciousness Movement. Fortunately, we don't only see you here on Question Time on Biko Day. But Prof, let me start with you. 39 years since Biko's death. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that we had hoped that by now this country would be back in the hands of the rightful owners. We had hoped that blackness would be established, an undoubted fact in the history, the mind, the consciousness, the life of black people in this country. And I mean by that not just members of the Black Consciousness Movement, because it is a philosophy that encompasses every black person in this country. Every black person is black conscious. And if you should tinter them, as the women say, touch black people and you'll see black consciousness erupting in them, expressing themselves in terms of who they are, what their fathers and mothers have suffered over history, and what they are suffering now. But unfortunately, we have been betrayed. 22 years down the line, black people are arising to the fact that the freedoms they thought everybody else was fighting for them have not come, and the reason is that the Black Consciousness Movement and Black Consciousness as a philosophy was actively sidelined by the events and processes since Mandela's release from prison.
Lapun Mabasa, Biko refuses to die.
He cannot die. He fights from the grave. Today we see hundreds of thousands of students at tertiary institutions and everywhere declaring without fear that they are Black Consciousness, that they are actually Steve Biko. It is so because the conditions and the things that Steve Biko articulated are much more clearer, starting to be much more understood by people, much better than maybe in the earlier years of the period of democracy. When the Black Consciousness Movement started, people had simple definitions of Black consciousness. They said it was a scientific articulation of the aspirations of black people, ordinary black people, a way of explaining to everyone what we are, what we aspire for, and how we think we can move forward.
But what happened to the Black consciousness movement, Dr. Mabas?
I would want to come. The Black consciousness movement was the strongest movement in the country.
And I wanted to say that.
And the problem with very strong organization, you reach a level where you start taking things for granted, where you do not take stock, where you say the people are with us. And I think that was a major mistake, because the white liberals, for instance, never forgave the Black consciousness movement for taking ownership of their struggle. As a result, while they organized a backlash against the Black consciousness movement, the Black consciousness movement took it for granted that Bantu, banali runa. And as a result, the planning, the thinking that we should have done, we did not do. Just to give you an example, that when you plan and think, things work much better. In September 1982, we decided that the legacy of Steve Biko is going to be defended. And from that, we then declared the 6th of September to the 12th of September the Black Consciousness Week. Those who have been in this country know the sacrifices that were done to defend that legacy, to defend Steve Biko. As a result, it didn't matter where people took Steve Biko, whether they put him in Lutuli House, whether they put him in the back of Beyond. That defense made sure that Steve Biko did not vanish, that the fight back for the name of Steve Biko continued. There were other leaders. I mean, Obama Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe was a dynamic leader, but a very conscious decision to defend his legacy was not done in the same manner that the Black consciousness movement did to defend the legacy of Steve Biko. And as a result, we're still there. And there are other examples who can show that those who were here would remember that every time somebody died, people say it's a new Steve Biko. Neil Agat died, and we didn't want him to die in prison. People said, here's a new Steve Biko, and it has been happening. But because the legacy of Steve Biko were systematically defended by his organization, it became a reality. Just before you stop me, Wali Serute, one of the most respected poet, at the time of Steve Biko's death, he said, Steve Biko will not become a statistic. He will not become part of the statistic. He says, even in his brain-damaged mind, Steve Biko knew that his movement will come for him, his movement will bury him, and his movement will take forward his ideas. And I think I would stop there. That's what has happened up till now.
Let's go to Nelspruit. Felix, are you there? Felix?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Felix.
Yeah, please, thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Oh yes, I think the principle of what Steve Biko stood for.
Felix, I'm having a problem with something that is playing in the background there. If you've got a radio on, please just switch it off or move away from it so that we'll be able to hear each other clearly. Okay, Felix is gone. But, Ndatamsal, I want to say to you, whilst still on this point that the Black consciousness movement seems to have lost ground. I don't know whether it was fashionable at the time. I mean, we as young activists, we loved the Black consciousness movement. We identified with it as young people, as students, and it was the political home of everybody. Perhaps even a breeding ground for leaders for other organizations as well. But then today, we're not seeing that vibrancy with the Black consciousness movement.
Yes. As Ndadima Basa says, two things happened. One is that, like all revolutions, for example, the 1848 revolutions in France, 1848, 49, 51 in France, the workers thought that they had achieved what they had fought for and sat back and celebrated. And while they were celebrating, the forces of order and the forces of reaction recouped, and they were murdered mercilessly, I think 1851 June. the insurrection over there. And I think we also had a moment of over-celebration after 1976 in particular, but going into the 1980s, we thought that we're moving the struggle, our people understood, and so on and so on. Meantime, what was happening was the revolution was being redefined. And that, I think, is what happened, and that has killed. It's not about the Black consciousness movement. It's about the Azanian revolution.
Okay.
The Azanian revolution got redefined. For example, on the issue of racism, we were fighting an anti-racist struggle. That struggle was redefined as a non-racial struggle. And when that happened, it means that the liberal discourse, the liberal philosophy and ideology was taking over again. And the problem about the ANC is that the ANC specifically redefined the South African revolution and delivered, together with their Western friends, delivered what we got in 1994, a package that was never, ever, ever going to free our people.
Itumeleng. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to know, Black consciousness, how are we going to address the problem that we are facing in Africa through Black government? How can you have the teachings of Steve Biko address the problem that Black people suffer from other Black people, like what is happening in Zimbabwe, what is happening in Gabon, what is happening in Sudan?
Okay.
Because of I think we must not always be harsh when other races when other races oppress us as Black people. But we are very much lenient when other Black people oppress other Black people.
Okay.
When I say I'm Black conscious, am I talking about being conscious of how I look, or am I talking about being conscious of how I treat other human beings, including Black people?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
That's a very important point, if I may, President.
Please.
That's an exceptionally important point. If Black consciousness was about two things. It was about Black people themselves, first and foremost. The problem that Black people were to themselves. And Steve Biko said our starting point is not white people. Our starting point is Black people, is what we think about ourselves, how we conceptualize our relationship with other people, but we are the problem first and foremost that we must solve. And only secondly is our issue, the issue of other people who are impacting on ourselves and our lives. And one of the things that I think, one of the mistakes that we've made along the way is in trying to explain what Black consciousness is. We've continually harped only on the issue of what white people have done, how they have done it, where they are, what they have and what we don't have. The issue is the liberation, the mental and political and ideological self-emancipation of Black people themselves. And that is why Black consciousness is not just a South African issue. And that is why the ANC was wrong to say that if you solve the issue of racialism in South Africa, you've solved the problem. The problem is one that deals with colonialism. Therefore, Mugabe is part of the issue that we need to resolve. The problem is one that deals with underdevelopment. Therefore, the problems of Tanzania, of Zambia, and all other African states, and the problems of Black people throughout. In particular, you said in your introduction, what about the issue of Black females and the Black female struggle? Black consciousness gets to the roots of that. And some of those things we have actually treaded very, very lightly on. We should have been doing more work on that. But I tell you, 39 years down the line, Black people, let alone the Black consciousness movement, Black people are tired of what we've been stuck in over the last 22 years at least. Black people now know that the Mandela solution was no solution. It was a semi-solution. It was an amelioration. It got white people happy and got some Black people happy, but the conditions, the fundamental conditions of Black people remain. And now is the time to tell Zuma and his organization and his government to tell them that Black people will not take it anymore.
Now, do you think
I apologize for calling him Zuma. I don't do the things that other organizations do. President Zuma.
Okay.
I'm very well brought up Black person.
But do you think, Dr. Mabasa, that you have done justice to Biko's legacy by the squabbles within the BCM, the many organizations that exist within the BCM. Today, you don't have any seat anywhere in terms of provincial and national government or legislatures. And I'm not saying that's how we should define politics, but that is how politics are played in South Africa, and you're not there.
Well, we have never criticized those who do a critique on us. There are certain things which we accept. But beyond that, we accept that when a system is put into place for a very long time, that system, when it is removed, it lives within those people, those communities, those countries, all its elements in place. And therefore, when we had to deal with what is called the new situation impacted on us because, like Professor Musala rightly put it, there are certain things which we're not able to do. We can't accept that divisions are correct. They are never correct in any liberation movement. But divisions are part of a discourse of trying to find your way forward. If you are not able to resolve your divisions, then indeed you are not being able to deal with politics. And that's why, despite all the odds, we have kept on knocking at this door of trying to recreate our movement, because that is truly possible.
Phumzile, you are in the Eastern Cape. Phumzile? Phumzile? Maybe put his name on the screen. He will see that we are talking to him. Phumzile? Okay, Phumzile, you are ignoring us now. That's not very good. Phumzile? Well, we've tried.
Yes, no, absolutely. On the issue of the disunity, I think we accept, and that's what I think President Mabasa is saying. We accept that we have not done the legacy of Biko any benefit by proliferating into splinter organizations ourselves. But I think what he's also saying is that history is like that. Because you see, we responded to the Mandela dispensation differently. Mm-hmm. We have always believed in a revolution, and particularly in a socialist revolution. Mm-hmm. But when the events of 1994 unfolded, and we had a new generation of people who were not born in Biko's time, we had people who had been in exile for those many years that were in exile, and then we had the rest of us here who were dealing with the beast, and dealing with particular ways. There were bound to be developments and differences of opinion amongst people. And eventually, like any other organizations, they took their toll on us. Okay. And we think our failure to prevent them did not do justice to the Biko legacy.
Okay, let's take a look at some of our tweets here. Mabutsuela. You are in the end product of Western imperialism. You took their religion, language, culture. Okay, Mabutsuela, another level there. Sibulele Makini, Mfoka Makini uthini ke BCM is still very much alive, but is manifested differently. E.g., the Pretoria High girls that stayed true to their identity. Okay, Ulihile Siabo says. Can the two towers assure us that there's no turning back regarding unity of the BCM, unity and black solidarity now? Yes, that's a very good one.
Yeah, indeed we can. We're far advanced in our preparations for reuniting the organization. This last Saturday, we had a major commemoration service, which was a united commemoration service of the BC family as a whole. We're moving towards October 19th. We have planned a major reunification event as part of the celebration of October 19th.
Matsiriso, you are in Gauteng. Welcome. Matsiriso?
Hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. No, I just want to ask the two icons on your studio there, Professor and Mr. Mabaso.
Yes.
We normally hear about Steve Biko, which is very, very good. He's going to teach our children and our grandchildren about his history. But we don't hear, we hear very little about the late Uncle Abraham Biko. We never hear anything about him. There is not even in the government institution of buildings that is being named after Uncle Biko. According to my belief, a university like University of Limpopo is supposed to be named after Uncle Biko. So I don't know what's going on about Uncle Biko. They still remembering him. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Wow.
Unkhuputse is one of the most important people in this country. The ANC, the PAC, the BCM agree that the events of June 16, 1976 starts particularly with Unkhuputse at the University of the North, the speech he made, and the subsequent expulsion of students of student leaders in almost all black universities, and the fact that all of them started teaching in various high schools, and Unkhuputse in particular teaching at Morris Isaacson in Soweto, being a tutor and a mentor of Tsietsi Machinin. And therefore, if we say 1976 was a turning point, we are saying Unkhuputse midwifed that turning point with the formation of SAZIM, with the formation of students' organizations that were in the forefront in fighting for liberation from 1976.
But there is a recognition of Unkhuputse. There's an annual lecture at the University of the North. We ourselves have an annual Unkhuputse memorial event in February every year. There is a hall at the University of the North named after Unkhuputse Abraham Tiro. I do accept that at the national level, the name of Unkhuputse Tiro is not as popularized, but then in the BC movement there are many stalwarts. Remember that we died for this country. Prison was not enough. 27 years was no equal to the number of BC people who died. Mapetla Mohapi, Unkhuputse Tiro, Tulika Shezi, Steve Biko. We can keep counting. We looked death in the face. We died for this country, and we will die again. That's the message coming from our commemoration this weekend, even from the prison cell of Steve Biko this morning in Pretoria. We gave our commitment that we will die again. And this government must know that it is not only white governments that we die for our people trying to overthrow. Any government that does not deliver to our people, we will die again. We are ready to die right now.
So what can you say to those of those who remain, being your adherents?
We start with those who left because they thought we would not get this thing going, that we are calling all the stepchildren in other organizations, because anybody who is above 40 and says he's been militant, he's been fighting, it means that person is likely to have been mentored by the Black Consciousness. So firstly, we call them back to come and assist in carrying this yoke. But to our members, our followers, we say the possibility is high. I think we are like good wine, good old wine. It tastes better, it's okay, and we think that's the space where we are in now.
Okay, gentlemen. Tao, unfortunately we have run out of time. I need to wrap up.
It's fine, it's a state of mind. It's a way of life.
That is fine. It is better to die for an idea that will live than to live for an idea that will die. And the most important weapon that
in the hands of
the oppressor has is the mind of the oppressed.
Absolutely.
Those are the words of Stephen Bantu Biko. And that was Question Time. Have yourself a wonderful time. Have a hot.